United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee will come to order. Thank you all for coming today. This is a public hearing, and I will state again for the record, we are glad to have you, but this is an official government hearing, and as such, interruptions, we have a 0 tolerance policy on interruptions or attempts to communicate with either the witnesses or members of the committee. So other than that, we love your appearance here, and we sincerely appreciate you coming and watching. So we have 6 nominees this morning, important nominees, and we have a lot of things going on in the Senate this morning. We have a short week and a lot of work to get done. And so we do have 3 senators who are going to introduce some of the nominees. But since they can't be here, the introduction will go into the record. And but we want you to know that Senator Rick Scott was here for Mr. Kaplan and for Bernardo Navarro. Senator Budd was here for Daryl Nuremberg, and Senator Tim Scott for Melissa Argyros. I'm sorry, I can't. Argyros, close, huh? All right. How's it? All right. In any event, those introductions, which I can assure you are very nice, will be put into the record, and they've said good things about you. With that, the way this is going to go this morning, I'm going to make a few opening remarks. The ranking member will make some opening remarks. Then we're going to open it up for you to make a couple minutes of introduction for yourself and tell us about the great and glorious things you're going to do. And then we'll open it up for questions. So with that, I'm going to start with you, Ms. Argyros, even though it's the toughest one to pronounce. That's why I'm starting here. If confirmed, you'll come to your post as ambassador to Latvia at a critical time. Russian provocations against NATO are on the rise, as we all know, both by testing our military defenses and spreading propaganda to undermine our military defenses and undermining our free societies. Fortunately, Latvia has set a strong example for our European allies in shoring up their defenses and adapting to new security challenges. And the U.S. remains an important and committed partner in helping them face these threats on the front line of NATO. I look forward to hearing how you will work with our friends in Latvia to advance our security cooperation and further bolster NATO. Ms. Bruce, by now you've probably heard that I'm no fan of the United Nations. I think we both understand that the UN has taken advantage of the American taxpayer for far too long. I hope we will hear from you today on how, as Deputy Ambassador to the UN, you'll work with Ambassador Waltz, who's doing a great job, to reform the organization. In particular, I hope you can help course correct the UN from the horrible anti-Semitic path it is on and return the Security Council to its core mandate of maintaining international peace and security. Ms. Kaplan, since October 7th, we've seen a historic rise in anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. and the globe, but like you, I believe that everyone, no matter their religious beliefs, deserves to live a life free from discrimination and fear. If confirmed as Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, this will be one of your greatest tasks. I look forward to hearing more about your goals for this position and how we can support you in the fight against anti-Semitism. Mr. Navarro, in 2026, the United States and Peru will celebrate 200 years of diplomatic relations. If confirmed as ambassador, you'll be charged with furthering this strong relationship and managing the challenges. I'm particularly concerned about Chinese malign influence and production of cocaine. I'm glad Secretary Rubio has spoken with the President of Peru to reaffirm the need to dismantle transnational criminal organizations that spearhead the production of drugs. Mr. Navarro, I look forward to hearing your plans to strengthen relations with Peru while pushing back on the issue that and the issues that plague that country. Mr. Nuremberg, as you know, Romania plays a critical role in deterring Russia and will be essential to countering Russian aggression against NATO allies. Romania is a steadfast partner of the United States in Europe, and time and again has played a crucial role in advancing our interests abroad. To keep Romania and our allies closely aligned with the U.S., it is important we use positive reinforcement to incentivize their cooperation. If you're confirmed to be ambassador, you will be responsible for maintaining this strong and beneficial bilateral relationship as broader U.S. policy toward Europe continues to evolve. I'm confident your Romanian counterparts will be eager to deepen our cooperation. Mr. Yaw, your nomination to Assistant Secretary of the Bureau of Arms Control and Non-Proliferation arrives not a moment too soon. We live with an unprecedented level of nuclear threat, but our arms control architecture is outdated and can't meet these challenges. Russia's nuclear triad is moving rapidly towards full modernization. It has suspended its New START obligations, and it continues to test and develop nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, China is racing to nuclear parity with us and refuses to come to the table for talks. With the expiration of New START in February, we must use this chance to lead on any new arms control negotiations. I look forward to hearing your plans to fully commit the U.S. to nuclear deterrence and ensure we can match our adversaries. Thank you again to all of you, and particularly to your families. We know they share in the sacrifices you make to do these jobs, and we deeply, deeply appreciate it. With that, the distinguished ranking member.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to all of our nominees today, to your families, and to your supporters who are here with you. I want to begin, Mr. Nirenberg, with some of the comments that the chairman made, because last month the Pentagon announced that it would withdraw troops from Romania. And the statement said, quote, "This is not an American withdrawal from Europe or a signal of lessened commitment to NATO and Article 5. But as we know, actions speak louder than words. And for those of us on both sides of the aisle who see the danger that Russia poses to Europe, this is a very concerning development. Romania is a critical ally along the Black Sea, and it hosts key U.S. military assets, including the Aegis Ashore ballistic missile defense system. Romania has helped keep Americans safer from missile threats and is more exposed to Russia when U.S. troop levels are cut. Yet Romania, which meets its NATO obligations and supports major U.S. military sales, is losing U.S. troops, while Hungary, under Orban, is still buying Russian gas and faces no such consequences. The Romanian Deputy Defense Minister has argued the decision should be overturned. Republican Chairman Wicker and Rogers of the Senate and House Armed Services Committees have spoken against this decision. I agree with their view. Mr. Nirenberg, if confirmed, you will be posted to our embassy in Romania as Putin escalates strikes in Ukraine and drones enter NATO airspace. Our allies fear the United States is pulling back. Drawing down U.S. troops in the face of Russian aggression does not sound like peace through strength to me. It sounds like an American retreat. If President Trump wants leverage to end the war in Ukraine, this decision signals just the opposite. Ms. Argyros, hopefully that was pronounced correctly. Great. You have also been nominated to an eastern flank country in Latvia. Latvia borders Russia and Belarus and faces a real and immediate threat. If confirmed, how will you reassure Latvians that the U.S. can be counted on? And what can you do to project American power in a way that will deter those in the Kremlin who question our commitment to the Baltic states? As Russia escalates across Europe, the risk of miscalculation grows, making credible arms control even more important. Mr. Yaw, you've been nominated to serve as Assistant Secretary to the Bureau of Arms Control and Non-Proliferation. It's a new bureau that's been created by the Trump administration's restructuring earlier this year. This committee has not yet been briefed on the new bureau's structure or scope. I hope you have, as the nominee. But that's a gap that the department should fix, and fix promptly. Given the president's statement that the U.S. will resume nuclear weapons testing, the question is, how serious is this administration about working to de-escalate nuclear tensions? Ms. Bruce, you've been nominated to be the Deputy Representative to the UN mission to the United Nations, working with Ambassador Walz. At the same time, the administration's failure to pay UN dues in full is weakening peacekeeping when global stability is already under strain. If confirmed, how will you address the risks these cuts create for U.S. interests? And Mr. Kaplan, if confirmed, you will serve as the U.S. Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. Fighting anti-Semitism requires bipartisan effort, especially today when the increase in anti-Semitic attacks and comments in the U.S. and around the world have increased so dramatically. If confirmed, how will you work across the aisle and with diverse religious communities to keep this from becoming a partisan issue? Finally, Mr. Navarro, you've been nominated to serve as ambassador to Peru. If confirmed, you will serve at a U.S. post facing significant unrest as the administration escalates tensions in the region. What steps will you take to support stability and democratic governance in Peru? I look forward to hearing from all of you, and thank you again for your willingness to consider being nominated and serve the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. We'll now hear from our witnesses, and if you'd keep it to a couple of minutes, please, we'd appreciate that. Your full statement, which I know many of you have that's longer than 2 minutes, will be included in the record and available for any senator who wants to review it. So with that, we're going to start with Ms. Argyros, and please, the floor is yours.
Chairman Risch, Senator Shaheen, and distinguished members of the committee, it's a privilege to appear before you today. I'm honored to be the nominee for the U.S. Ambassador to Latvia, and I thank President Trump and Secretary Rubio for their confidence in me. I want to thank my family and friends who continue to support me in every imaginable way. I want to particularly thank my parents who taught me the value of hard work, the importance of service, and humility. I've spent many years working in our family real estate company, and I'm grateful to the people who have dedicated their lives to making our company a success. I currently run our family foundation, where we support programs that focus on education, youth development, and the arts. If confirmed, my first priority will be the safety and security of U.S. citizens in Latvia. Second, I would work to counter threats to our common security. Latvia has been an excellent partner to the United States, and our relationship is based on our shared goals, interests, and values. I would focus to strengthen our security partnership and support the peace through strength that President Trump has called for. I'd aim to improve the depth of the U.S. economic relationship with Latvia. Economic stability and prosperity are key components of security, and we can build our current trade relationship into an engine of growth. If confirmed, I would look forward to working with the talented staff at Embassy Riga to build on their successes and advance our shared goals, building a world that is safer, more secure, and more prosperous. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much. Ms. Bruce.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, sir. Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen, and distinguished members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. It is my honor to appear before you today as President Trump's nominee to represent the United States as the Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations. My experience in business, with nonprofits, in activism, in media, as a cultural critic, as a writer and television and radio commentary, has prepared me well for this role. I spent most of my professional life working to make a positive difference for the American people, including, I have to say, my time spent as an advocate in the media, and most recently as the State Department spokesperson and public delegate to the United States. Prior to that role, it won't surprise you that I had not considered a career in government, and my opinion of the bureaucracy was mostly negative. Yet within days of becoming the State Department spokesperson, I found out very quickly that my assumptions I had made about those who work for the government were incorrect. Foreign service officers and civil service employees at state made my work possible. I presume our politics were very different, yet the men and women I met were not partisan activists, but patriots determined to serve their country to make sure I was able to do the job that the President appointed me to. My thanks go out to all of them on this day. Of course, President Trump is emblematic of the founder's vision and ideal of leadership, and I'm grateful and moved by the trust he has placed in me for this position. I understand his commitment to our great country, knowing that genuine leadership and reform are needed to maintain our success so that future generations can thrive and know the joy that is being an American. With the United States as a founding member of the United Nations, it is unfortunate to have to note that over the past 80 years, the UN has in fact strayed from its original mandate as outlined in the UN Charter. The UN has become bloated, unfocused, and ineffective in solving today's most pressing challenges to global peace and security. To be blunt, it has lost the confidence of the sovereign of our country, the American people. Now is the time for bold reform. Now is the time to get the UN back to basics, as we put it. The UN must return to its core purposes, above all, its founding mission to maintain international peace and security. If confirmed, I look forward to supporting President Trump and Secretary Rubio in their efforts to reform the UN and revitalize U.S. diplomacy, putting the nation's interests first and delivering wins for the American people. It is also vitally important to note that multilateral organizations must remember that they do not exist to manifest themselves as global governing entities. It is the sovereignty of member states which must prevail. If confirmed, I am committed to ensuring U.S. funding to the UN advances policies and priorities that strictly add value to American taxpayers and American foreign policy interests. We cannot support the proliferation of divisive concepts like DEI and gender ideology, as well as a continuation of hateful anti-Israel bias. This oversight extends to UN peacekeeping and peace operations that also need reform and reprioritization. As President Trump declared at the UN General Assembly, the UN has tremendous potential. I personally believe that. I believe that the UN is important and must be revitalized so it can continue to serve the people of the United States and the people of the world. I'm confident that we will continue to help the UN see this potential and return it to the useful organization it was established to be. Thank you for your time and consideration of my nomination. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mr. Kaploon.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Risch, Senator Shaheen, Ranking Member, and the distinguished members of the committee. I would like to acknowledge my family who is here today. My name is Yehuda Kaploon, and I'm honored to be nominated for the important position of United States Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism with the rank of ambassador. I want to thank President Trump and Secretary Rubio for placing their trust in me for this very important role. As a child, I would walk to synagogue with my father, the noted educator Rabbi Yaakov Kaploon, in New Haven, Connecticut, and I do remember occasionally hearing the cries of "dirty Jew" along the way. Later, while living in Crown Heights during the pogrom, when the Australian scholar Yankel Rosenbaum was stabbed to death during the riots with the cries of "kill the Jews" in the streets. My sister, Esther Kaploon, passed away from 9/11 related cancers. My cousin, Adi Kaploon, a brave mother, was killed on October 7th, protecting her 2 young children who were orphaned. She was one of the 1,200 souls murdered that day. I sat with Yarden Bibas the night before the funeral of his wife and children. Yes, I have seen the worst that humanity can do. When asked to serve my country by our president in a role that I truly wished did not need to exist, there was no hesitation. I sit before you humbled by the opportunity to serve my country. It is a daunting task. Anti-Semitism is a symbol of larger hatred. History has proven that when a country starts with allowing anti-Semitism, the results are not kind to that country. That is why President Trump and Secretary Rubio have stated There can be no compromise with anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is anti-American. Those who chant death to the Jews all too often chant death to America. We cannot allow anyone to teach children from infancy to kill and to be a martyr. Together, with bipartisan support, we must educate the world to respect one another. Lofty goals, perhaps, but a lesson that I learned from the Grand Rabbi of Lubavitch, as well as from my grandparents and my parents, is to do my best to impact and make the world a better place. I am not a miracle worker. We cannot do this alone. We do this by building bridges through education and friendships and dialogue. We must learn from the past to protect and educate the living. We must educate, educate, educate about the history of the Jewish community in America and the Judeo-Christian values our country was founded on. I pledge to all of you here, I will not waver and I will not rest. I will commit to you to do my very best, if confirmed, to fight anti-Semitism everywhere and to make this world a better arena for God to dwell and spread his blessings upon us all. I am honored to appear before you today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nuremberg.
Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to appear before you today as President Trump's nominee to be U.S. Ambassador to Romania. I am grateful to President Trump and Secretary Rubio for placing their confidence in me. And it is an incredible honor to be before this committee on whose staff I served as counsel. It was the experience of a lifetime and a privilege for which I will always be grateful. Although, after all the hours spent sitting on the benches behind you, I can tell you it's a much different perspective sitting down here anticipating your questions. With me today are my wife, Lori, our son, Drew, and our daughter, Kelly. I am grateful for their support. Lori was also a Senate staffer, and we met right next door in the Hart Building. Her father, the late Chick Hecht, served as senator from Nevada and also later as U.S. Ambassador to the Bahamas. Our daughter, Kelly, works in public relations, and like me, she's a proud Colgate alum. It is deeply meaningful for me to be nominated to be ambassador to Romania. My grandparents emigrated to this country from Eastern Europe, and I saw history unfold during my time on the staff of this committee when the Berlin Wall fell and the Romanian people won their freedom from communism. Should I be confirmed, it would bring it all full circle. Romania is a key NATO ally, strategically located on the Black Sea and bordering Ukraine. It has great opportunities for American companies, and it has the potential to be a game changer when it comes to energy resources. Our relationship with Romania has never been more important. If confirmed, I commit to advancing President Trump's America First agenda and working to make America stronger, safer, and more prosperous. I will first focus on ensuring the safety of Americans serving, living, and visiting there. I will work to deepen our military and security partnership, and I will focus on strengthening our trade and investment relationship. I will promote U.S. exports, advocate on behalf of American companies, and encourage investments that create jobs in the United States. This nomination is the honor of a lifetime, for which I am grateful to President Trump and Secretary Rubio. I look forward, if confirmed, to working closely with this committee to strengthen our relationship with Romania and promote America's national interests abroad. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yap.
Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen, and distinguished members of this committee, thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank President Trump for nominating me to serve as the Assistant Secretary of State for Arms Control and Nonproliferation. I also want to thank Secretary Rubio for his support. It's a tremendous honor to be nominated and appear before this committee. If confirmed, I assure the committee that I will be a clear and unwavering voice for an America First foreign policy in service to the great people of this great nation. And I commit to working with this committee and with Congress to advance our shared vision and values. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank my family, friends, and colleagues. Without a lifetime of their support and encouragement, I would not be here today. I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to my family. My wife, Nan, is here with me today. My daughter, Grace, my son, John, son-in-law, Nathan, are unable to join us as they're doing their part to keep our great economy going. And my youngest daughter, Mary, is home caring for her newborn and my first grandchild, Christopher. And of course, I thank God, under whose watchful and all-searching gaze we all must serve to the best of the abilities He's bestowed. I've had the privilege of serving in the federal government for over 2/3 of my 30-year career. In that time, I've worked in acquisitions, intelligence, policy, operations, education, and research. The themes and activities surrounding nuclear deterrence, nuclear weapons and missile defense development, assurance of allies, and formulating an accurate and clear-eyed view of WMD threats have dominated my daily life for my entire adult life. And if confirmed, it would be an honor to carry that breadth of experience into this new role. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mr. Navarro.
Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen, it is an honor to appear before you today as a nominee to serve as a U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of Peru. I am grateful to President Trump for entrusting me with this nomination and to Secretary Rubio for his steadfast support. I also want to thank my friend Rick Scott for introducing me into the record and for his friendship all these years. It is a blessing to be here today with my beautiful wife, Claudia, and our 3 children, Alexandra, Matthew, and Jake. I am also joined by my brother, Gilbert, my sister, Norma, my mother, Norma, and my father, Gilberto. I also want to thank my friends and family that joined us from South Florida and Puerto Rico and made the trek to be here today. My parents were born in Cuba. They lost everything to communism and fled their homeland in search of freedom. I will forever be grateful to them for their courage, their sacrifice, and their unwavering faith in the promise of America. They put their own dreams aside so that my siblings and I could achieve ours. From an early age, they taught us that anything resembling communism is not only wrong, but a direct threat to the liberty and the opportunity this nation represents. Today, I can proudly say that my parents' dreams have come full circle. Their journey from losing everything in Cuba to seeing their son achieve the American dream is a testament to what this country makes possible. If confirmed, I will carry their story and the story of countless families like ours as proof that the American dream is not just alive, but thriving. Over the past weeks, I've had the privilege of meeting many of you to discuss our relationship with Peru. Under the Trump administration, we have a golden opportunity to put America first as we advance our interests abroad. If confirmed, I pledge to work closely with this committee to support the administration's goals of protecting the safety of U.S. citizens, promoting economic prosperity and regional security, and deepening a bilateral relationship that has endured for nearly 2 centuries. As the founder and owner of Benworth Capital, I have witnessed firsthand the potential for expanding our ties with Peru. When I served as chairman of one of South Florida's largest trade associations, we organized a trade mission to Peru that produced historic results and forged business relationships that continue today. I will bring that same resolve to my work in Peru if confirmed. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of this committee, if confirmed, I will dedicate myself to strengthening the bonds between our nations and advocating for American interests. Thank you for your consideration.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Last evening, I was with Secretary Rubio at dinner and his wife, and they spoke very highly of you and said to extend their wishes, wish they could be here to support you, but both of them were tied up. But thank you. Thank you for your service. Speaking of the Secretary, Mr. Nirenberg, he, like you, he found out the hard way that sitting over there is a lot different than sitting up on this side, so thanks a lot. I want to talk for a few minutes, Mr. Kaplan, about your work. You know, it really seems like we're slipping backwards on anti-Semitism. I always thought we were at one end of the spectrum and the Palestinians were at the other end of the spectrum. We've all seen the texts that they use teaching their children anti-Semitism. When I first got here, those texts, believe it or not, were paid for with U.S. taxpayer money through UNRWA, which we stopped as quickly as we could. They're still using the text, but they're not paying with our taxpayer money. So they're at one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum I thought was America. After October 7th, I have to tell you, I was nauseated to see these people up in, particularly up in New York area, siding with Hamas. Anybody who has even a thought like that should look at the film that what happened on October 7th. They'd change your mind very quickly. You've got your work cut out for us, but you got a lot of work to do right here. I've heard anti-Semitic speeches on the floor of the House of Representatives, which I never thought I'd see. Your thoughts?
Thank you very much, Senator, for the question. I think if I refer back to my opening statement, it's education. People don't know the history. People don't understand that we have to respect one another. I often urge people to go to the Holocaust Museum so they could understand history. You know, people who would like to say that the Holocaust didn't happen, or people would like to have revisionist history. We have in our midst, in our country, some of the bravest people who in 1944 and 45 liberated death camps, American soldiers, regular American boys from all over America. And the problem is that people don't want to listen to them and hear their stories because they know firsthand in their quest to redeem Europe from the Nazis, they came across the death camps. And they're the best advocates in the world. And people don't want to take the time to understand that these people saw the worst of humanity. And in America, we believe in freedom of expression and freedom of speech, but at the same time, we have to educate people as to what the facts truly are. So you're educated, and we're missing that boat, sir.
Well, thank you. And I throw in completely with your remarks on education. I made reference to what's being taught in the Palestinian schools and the text that they're using. The challenge is going to be, as we go forward, trying to reconcile the situation there, is that it's going to be very difficult to get through that, what has been taught in those schools for generations and what people are living with there. That's got to get turned around, and if it doesn't get turned around, you're going to get the same results in the future. So you've got your work cut out for you. We wish you the best. Ms. Bruce, NATO needs an overhaul really, really badly. Their bureaucracy is incredible. American taxpayers are paying for a lot of it, and it truly has become a bureaucratic institution and lost really the view of its core mission. You know, I think probably the name needs a change. Our nations are not united. Indeed, if anything, as I see the world, we're becoming more and more polarized with us, the democracies, those of us that are free market, free enterprise capitalists, people who support human rights on one side, and on the other, countries that are run by dictators or autocrats and are socialist or communist. with zero respect for individual human rights. And we're polarizing. More and more they're coming together, and more our side's coming together. And it's, we're drawn together by each of our shared values within our group. And we have different values. And I've always said that the biggest challenge I see from this seat is during the 21st century is figuring out how we're going to occupy the planet together without killing each other, because they're not going to change and we're not going to change. And I really think that we could do better in the United Nations by getting rid of a lot of the bureaucracy and getting back to its core mission of trying to reconcile. And that's just not working. Your thoughts?
Well, yes, sir, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. What I can say, because I know millions of Americans agree with that, that has been a problem. It has become a bureaucracy that has become ineffective, slow, unable to really operate in this dynamic world. But I would suggest, and this is what the world is also seeing, that things can change, and that was shown and is shown every day by President Trump. It is a huge inspiration, not just for me and those of us who know him, but for Americans, having, of course, voted for him again a second time, that they realize that, look, things have not been going well, not only when it came to the economy here, but when it comes to foreign relations and the situation around the world. And I've seen, being a short time already at the UN under my public delegate role and as an advisor to Ambassador Waltz, is that the UN also wants leadership. We saw how they responded to President Trump during the high-level week for the UN General Assembly. They want leadership. He is well-respected, he is inspirational, and he clearly already makes a difference around the world. So I think it is that example that tells me and the 5 other ambassadors, the 4 that you've already confirmed to the U.S. mission to the UN, that he's serious about wanting to make it work. He sent people that he knows will get the job done. We've expressed that. I know certainly Ambassador Waltz has, certainly by doing great work, because it's not a zero-sum game of one or the other. It is about blending reform with the work that we are doing. That's what President Trump does. He's our guiding hand here, and I'm accepting this nomination and hope you'll confirm me, because I believe that we can make the difference.
Well said. Senator Ricketts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United Nations recently passed a U.S.-backed resolution tied to President Trump's Gaza peace plan. A major part of that plan is expanding humanitarian aid. This includes securing aid corridors, protecting civilians, and getting relief into Gaza. The administration has been clear that aid must increase, but it must also be accountable. That means that UNRWA cannot be allowed to be anywhere near it. For years, UNRWA has been plagued by Hamas infiltration that directly undermines peace and security in the region. That's why I led a letter with 25 of my Senate colleagues backing the administration's stance that UNRWA must be prohibited as a humanitarian delivery mechanism. If we're going to build a durable peace, aid must go through vetted organizations and partners we can trust. Ms. Bruce, as the Deputy Representative to the UN, what specific steps will you take to ensure that no aid directly or indirectly flows through UNRWA?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I think perhaps the most recent comment that reassures everyone that UNRWA will have no role in Gaza, its development, in distribution, is from Secretary Rubio. He made that very clear in speaking to reporters that they would have absolutely no role. It was undeniable and clear for the exact reasons that you stated, sir. Part of what President Trump indicated at the beginning of this as he moved to want to create peace in a region that for generations it couldn't happen or was resisted or it was this misery was the status quo. President Trump said there had to be new ideas. There had to be a new approach, not just in that situation, but in many others. And that's where I believe the UN can come in and make the difference, is that countries, sovereign countries working together to find peace, to reinforce peace, to facilitate that dynamic around the world is necessary for all of us to be able to talk together and work together in that environment. I believe the President clearly understands that as well. Our role is the first example is that remarkable passage of the Gaza resolution. It was the first time something like that occurred, and what the UN Security Council did was put their stamp of approval on President Trump's 20-point peace plan for that region. It was not the establishment of a new UN force. It wasn't the establishment of or the stamp of approval on the status quo moving forward. It was a stamp of acceptance and a welcoming of 13 to 0 with 2 abstentions, that this had to occur, that President Trump's plan was new. It was something that could make the difference. It was something that has to be implemented. And the way to do that, for the world to come together to see that agreement at the Security Council, means that other nations, other entities, NGOs know that this is something now, it is a new way forward, but it is something they can work forward with. The World Food Program, other entities associated with the UN, and other nations and their assistance will make the difference. We will pick up the difference of whatever UNRWA claimed that they were doing. And remarking back to my colleague here, the rabbi, is the fact that it's also about education when it comes to UNRWA. The nature of what they were doing in inculcating and grooming the next generation of the children of that region to hate also must come to an end. So that is unfortunately a new idea, but it's one that we're committed to, and it's going to be very exciting to help usher that through as it moves forward.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Bruce.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Arias, we'll go back to you for a moment. Tell us a little bit about your views on Latvia. I was there not long ago, and I'm always amazed at the Baltics where we're sitting looking across the fence at Russia. They're frightened, and they want our assurances that things are going to be okay. Tell us your thoughts about what you're going to tell them when you go there.
Thank you, Chairman Risch, for the question. Latvia stands at the forefront of Russian aggression. They understand the severity of the implications of the war in Ukraine. They were the first to step in and train Ukrainian soldiers and provide weapons to fight Russia in Ukraine. Their shared border with Russia and Belarus is a serious issue for them. Belarus attempts to send weaponized migrants through their borders to, on a daily basis, attack Latvia with cyber attacks, multiple different ways that they attempt to undermine and destabilize the Latvian government. They face a serious threat with Russia, and we have partnered with them. We've been a partner with them for over 100 years. We housed their diplomats in our country while they were under occupation from Russia. We have a terrific relationship with Latvia. They purchase most of their weapons from us. They now purchase all of their LNG from us, which is terrific. They've stopped purchasing all Russian oil. So they take the threat from Russia quite seriously, and I would advocate for us to remain a steadfast partner with them in their defense against Russia.
Well, I hope when you get there, you will convey our assurances that our support is there, and thank them for what they have to go through in order to stand up to Russia right there on the border. So thank you for that. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome everybody. A special welcome to Daryl Nierenberg. Nice to see you again. We were fellow staff members on this committee back in the 1980s, so good to see you again. Ms. Bruce, my question's for you, and it relates to the horrors that we're witnessing in Sudan today, including the brutal actions the RSF is taking against people in Darfur, including in Al-Fashir. And when Secretary Rubio was before this committee as a nominee, here's what he said. He said that we will, quote, need to raised the fact that they, referring to the UAE, are openly supporting an entity that is carrying out a genocide. And the U.S. government has found that the RSF is engaged in genocide in Sudan. I'm assuming the Trump administration continues to support that finding from the previous administration. Is that right?
Well, I can tell you that certainly through Secretary Rubio, we know that that is an acknowledged framework. And in my current position, when I'm confirmed, I will make a point of an issue like that, which certainly matters as much as every other issue, to make sure that the Trump administration and Secretary
Sorry,
Rubio.
yeah, I have limited time. So I was just wondering if that's still the policy of the Trump administration.
Well,
if you don't know, we can get back to
Yeah, well, I know, again, where Secretary Rubio stands, certainly.
Okay.
I know that in the time that already that I've spent at the UN, that it is a major conversation, that it is something that the mission cares about, and that we're working forward on. So it's a major issue.
The UN has been very clear on this, as have members of this committee, including the Chairman Risch and Ranking Member Shaheen. And it's my view that the United States should do everything it can in its power to pressure the outside powers that are fueling this war from stopping fueling this war. And I know Secretary Rubio has said the same thing. So my question to you is, shouldn't we insist that the UAE stop sending weapons to the RSF when the United States government has found the RSF is committing genocide in Sudan? That's a simple yes or no question.
Well, sir, I would suggest that, and I appreciate that very much, because obviously it's an issue that we're all concerned about. I'm here because of President Trump's point of view and his reliance on what we will be doing if I'm confirmed once I'm at the UN. But that's a kind of policy decision that I would not want to get ahead of or remark on when it comes to President Trump's approach.
Got it. Well, I'll be asking the Senate to, move forward on that proposal in the coming days, and I hope we'll have a bipartisan
Good to know. Yes, sir.
outcome. To Rabbi Kaplan, I think we've all been extremely, extremely concerned about the rise in anti-Semitism around the world and in the United States. We, of course, witnessed it here in the Washington area with the killings of 2 members of the Israeli embassy. We've seen it in my state of Maryland in terms of attacks on some Jewish small business owners and in other places around the world. And I think we all recognize that we have a united obligation to do everything we can to stop it. In that regard, I do want to ask you about President Trump's response to Tucker Carlson's decision to bring Nick Fuentes onto his show. And when the president was asked about it, he said, and I'm quoting, "I don't know much about him," referring to Nick Fuentes, "but if he wants to do it, get the word out, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide." Do you think that was a strong enough statement from President Trump to the issue of bringing Fuentes onto that radio platform, or that platform?
Thank you very much for your question. I think the President and the Secretary of State have made it perfectly clear that any type of anti-Semitism is not a place in America. That's number one, and that's something that guides the administration's policy as far as being a private civilian, but if confirmed, that I know is the policy, is anti-Semitism is to be condemned everywhere. Anti-Semitism is not just an American problem, it's a global problem, and a lot of hatred comes from ignorance. People aren't educated. But freedom of speech is something that's a right, and freedom of expression globally is an important part of what the administration's policy is. You have a right to hate, but we have a right to explain and stand up and abhor everything that you say. That's something that's in this country, and it's from our founding fathers.
Thank you.
So I believe very strongly that we can condemn remarks whenever they need to be condemned and educate people. We have to go back to my earlier statement when I said we have to educate people to not hate and respect one another and understand the facts. If we go back, all I ask is, I tell people, let them meet American soldiers who liberated the death camps. That's the best answer for any Holocaust denier anywhere.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Go ahead.
just a follow-up. So Look, I agree with you that the best way to respond to speech is with speech. I'm also a supporter of free speech, and which is why I have to say it's very worrisome that the Trump administration has been locking up some students for expressing their views on Gaza. But my question to you is this. The president didn't respond to the statements Nick Fuentes made with speech. I mean, he didn't say what he stands for, Nick Fuentes, is outrageous. And so I would have hoped when asked that the president would take that kind of position going forward. Let me just ask you this, and I asked your predecessor, the earlier envoy during the Biden administration, about this. I mean, you would agree with me that it's not anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish to criticize the actions of the government of Israel, right?
Thank you, Senator, for your question. I would refer back to the IRA definition of what is okay to criticize. You have a right to criticize a country, but if you are only going to criticize Israel, and that's every statement that you're making, but you're not going to be consistent across the board, in the IRA definitions, it's very, very clear that you need to condemn everything across the board and not just single out Israel. When you single out Israel is when it crosses that line of that it's becoming an anti-Semitic issue, possibly. If you're going to condemn the killings of Christians in the Sudan or the Uyghurs in China or things that are going on around the globe, and you're going to, at that point in time as well, condemn something that you don't like about a country, that's fine. But if you are particularly singling out Israel, that becomes a greater issue, and that's exactly what the IRA definitions have.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just if I could, I think if you look at members of this committee, for example, across the board, we've been very clear in condemning human rights violations, from Chinese actions against the Uyghurs to what's happening in Sudan, to what's happening in Burma, to what's happening in many other places around the world. But I hope you will agree with me that we should be consistent. In other words, the government of Israel should be held to the same standard that we apply to every other country of the world when it comes to human rights. Do you agree with that?
As I said before, Senator, that the IRA definition, if people are abiding by that definition,
No, this is a separate question.
then you
No,
can.
I'm just asking you a separate question, Rabbi. I mean, you pointed out that we should essentially have the same standard in terms of protection of human rights and justice and self-determination. Should we apply that equally to Israel as many of us do to other countries and governments around the world?
I believe that the administration does apply that equally to Israel.
Okay. I think if you look at the Inspector General's report that came out of the State Department recently, they'll find not this administration, but the previous administration completely failed to do that. So, look, let's just make this clear. You agree that criticizing the Trump administration is not anti-American. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So in that sense, criticizing the actions of any government, in my view, is an expression of people's values and principles, and we should apply similar standards going forward, and I hope that we will do that across the board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Van Hollen. Thank you to all our witnesses.
Oh, I have one, sorry, Mr. Chairman. I was asked by Congressman Nadler to submit to the record a letter that he and some other members of the House have written to us in opposition to the rabbi's nomination. I'm just going to submit it at his request.
Yeah, as always, those submissions to the committee will be included in the record. So with that, let me say to each of you, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being willing to serve. I will say you got off a little easy today. This is a pretty big committee, but there's so much other stuff going on. They aren't here. It has nothing to do with the interest that people have in your nomination. So consider yourselves fortunate, at least in that regard. So with that, before closing, I will add any letters of support or otherwise that the committee has received regarding matters before the committee today to be included in the record. The record will remain open until close of business tomorrow, November 20th, for members to submit questions for the record. If any of you get questions for the record, I would urge you to immediately respond, as it will help move your nominations along. Again, thank you so much, and with that, the committee will be adjourned.